Well, hello, welcome again to the reading of the Greek New Testament. I'm just reading through the Epistle to the Hebrews and chapter 2, and I got up to verse 10. Eprepen ga auto dihon tapanta kai dihu tapanta, polus huius es dexan agagonta ton archegon te soterias auton dia pathematon telaiosai. For, now this is from prepo and it's impersonal verb here. It is fitting for him, and it's not quite clear immediately who the him is. I think most commentators take this to refer to God. The use of prepo in the Septuagint referring to God is not terribly common apparently. But anyway, that's what it seems to be here. So, for it was fitting for him dihon, through whom tapanta, all things. Now there's no verb in this part, so we have to supply the verb to be here. So through whom all things existed, and on account of whom, I should say, all things existed, and through whom all things existed. So we get two uses of dia plus the accusative and dia plus the genitive. So on account of whom everything exists, and through whom everything exists, and hence that makes the taking of this to refer to God a bit more secure. Now, the next little section here is quite tricky. We've got an infinitive at the end. There's no other main verb because it's all dependent on this eprepen. So it was fitting for him. Now we get a dative here for auto, but we get an accusative participle, in fact agreeing with that dative. Now that's rather odd in Greek, but it does happen in classical Greek and in biblical Greek, where you'll get a change of case even though it's referring to the same person. Commentators point out that this agagonta cannot agree with the ton archegon. For that to happen, we would need a ton or something in front to link these together. So even though this is accusative and that is accusative, it's generally taken that this is meant to be in apposition to the auto. Now, for the grammar, the agagonta is an aorist, strong aorist participle from ago. The aorist is agagon. You de-augment to get agag, and then you've got your strong aorist participle here and leading. So this is going to mean, for it was fitting for him, on account of whom and through whom all things existed, him having led polus huius, many sons, into glory. Now we take the infinitive. It was fitting for him to make perfect, and the object of that is ton archegon. This is a word meaning a leader or ruler, often used of a prince in earlier Greek. It's from arche in the sense of to rule, and then the agon of leading. So it normally means a ruler. So to make perfect, other translations take this as leader or author or something. So to make perfect the ruler or leader of of their salvation, to make him perfect dia pathematon, through sufferings. So just to put that together, it's a very tricky verse with the grammar there. So for it was fitting for him, that is God, through whom, on account of whom all things were, and through whom all things were, him, God, having led many sons into glory, was fitting for him to make perfect the ruler or author or leader of their salvation through sufferings. We would just say through suffering in English. Hotega hagiasdon kai hoi hagiadzomenoi ex henos pantes, dihen aitian uk ep I scunetot delphus autus calain, and then we're going to get a quotation, so I might just stop it there. So we get te. You'll notice the accent on here because te is enclitic. So we get a te and kai. So for both the one sanctifying and those being sanctified, all of them, no, there's no main verb here, we have to supply are, ex henos. Well, very vague, it's from one source, presumably this again refers back to God. You might, some people supply patros here from one father or something with the henos. It's just literally all are from one person. Dihain itian, on account of which reason. It's that usual construction here, on account of the thing, the reason which, but the Greek does it the other way around. So for which reason, we would say in English, he is not ashamed, from ep iskunamai, to call autus them adelphus brothers. Legon, saying. And now in verse 12 we get another quotation. This is from Psalm 22:22. The Septuagint has a different first word here. You've got abangelo here. I think the Septuagint has diagesamai, so slightly different. This is a future from ap angelo. You'll see it's a future with only one lambda, and then you get a contraction here. Originally ap angeleso, the sigma disappears and the epsilon contracts. So I will report, I will announce your name, tois adelphois mu, to my brothers, en meso ecclesias whom ne so se. And I will sing a hymn to you, literally I will hymn you, I'll sing a hymn to you in the middle of the, well, ecclesia, you certainly can't say church at this point, in the middle of the gathering. Kai Palin, and again, we've got another quotation. This one is from this is from Isaiah 8:17, and the next one's from Isaiah 8:18, and both of these are straight from the Septuagint. So, and again, ego esamai pepoithos ep auto, kai palin idu ego kai tapaidia, hamoi edo ken hothios. Now this is an interesting construction here. It's kind of technically a future perfect, which you don't, a periphrastic future perfect, in some sense, because this pepoithos was originally a kind of perfect participle connected with patho. But the word itself becomes fossilized, and it's simply used as an adjective by this stage. This is from the Septuagint as well, but you'll see this in the New Testament. So pepoithos is often just used to mean trusting in. So it's literally, I will be trusting ep auto in him. Some might argue because this was originally a perfect, and this is an example of a future perfect, which you don't get in Greek very often. Kai palin, and again, behold, I. So it's behold, it's something like here am I. When you see idu in the Septuagint, it often means behold, here am I, and the children, ha, which God gave moi to me. Verse 14, epe un tapaidia kekoino eken, haimatos kaisakos. Kaiautos paraplesios metesken ton auton, hinadia tu thanatu katagesai, katagese ton tokratos ekomta tu thanatu, tutestin ton diabolon. Kai apalaxe tutus hosoi phoboi, thanatu diapantos tutsen enokoiesin duleas. Therefore, when, now the subject here is tapaidia, and it's neuter plural, so singular verb. The rule is followed here. This is from koinoo. Elsewhere in the New Testament, the verb is often used in the sense of to make koinos, to make common, and hence in a negative sense to defile. But here it's just got its old meaning of koinos, to share in. So, therefore, since the children have shared, and it takes a genitive, this is a classical use of the word here. This is not what you normally get in the New Testament. There are passages in classical Greek which mirror this, where you've got this plus a genitive. So therefore, since the children have shared in blood and flesh, two genitives here from Hymer and Sachs, and autos, he himself, now this must be referring back to Jesus, I think. Paraplesios is an adverb here, likewise, in similar way, so similarly or likewise. So he likewise, metesken, has a share with them. This is from met echo, and it takes a genitive. This is the aorist from eskon, is the aorist from echo. So he likewise shares with them. Hina, in order that, now we get a subjunctive, kat argese. This is from kata plus the erg root. It is kata plus alpha plus the erg root. It means to nullify, to make not to work, literally, and hence to destroy or to nullify. So in order that through death he might nullify or take away the ability to act of the one having tokratos, the power, the might, this is a neuter noun, of death. To testin, that is, ton diabolon, that is, the devil. Kai apalaxe, now this is again subjunctive after the hina up here, and the apalaxe is, it means to separate from and hence to free or deliver. So he has, in order that he might deliver tutus them, and who are they? Well, explained here. Hosoi phobos thanatu diapantos tutsein enoku eis in duleas. As many as, by fear of death, diapantos tutsein. Now, tsein actually is an infinitive here. It's not the accusative from Zoe or something. This is an infinitive, but it's being used as a noun. So it's being used as a noun here with the article meaning life. So, as many as, by fear of death, through their entire life, were enokoi douleas, were subject to slavery. The enokoi is, the ok is connected with echo. It means to be held down by, and hence subject to. Enokos is a fairly common word. It's in the New Testament and earlier. So putting that together, so in order that he might deliver them, as many as by fear of death through their entire life were subject to, in the grip of, might be a nice way of translating that, to get the n and the ek in there, in the grip of slavery. Uga depu angelon epilambanatai alaspermatos Abraham epilambanatai. This again is a tricky verse. You'll need to look at commentaries on this. It looks as though, it's not marked in bold, but it looks as though it's based on Isaiah 41:8, except that the verb there is not epilambanatai, but antelabamane, which means to help. Anyway, antilabanatai here, it's a classical word. It normally means to lay hold of something. Here it's got a slightly more extended meaning, and it's in the middle. So it means to take upon oneself the nature of. So again, you'll need to look at some commentaries on this to get more references and detail. So this is quite a tricky verse, and the depu is something like surely. So for surely he did not, there's a negative with this, he did not take upon himself the nature of angels, but he took upon himself, and takes a genitive, the seed of Abraham. So this again is all, the whole point about chapters 1 and 2 are really making this distinction between Jesus and the angels. And so Jesus came in this text to destroy the one who has power of death, that is the devil, and to rescue as those who were by fear of death were subject to slavery. For he did not take to himself the nature of angels, but he took to himself the seed of Abraham, i.e. he became human. Hothen ophalen katapanta tois adelphois homoiothenai hina elein genetai kai pistos archirus ta proston theon es to hilaskestai tas hamatias tu lau. Hothen, from whence, ophalen, he ought. So perhaps he is obliged. So yeah, we get the hot plus that old then ending, meaning it's an old ablative meaning from. So it's almost as a result of which he is obliged. Homothenai is an aorist passive infinitive, to be made like to the brethren, to his brethren. Katapanta is an adverbial little phrase here, in all respects. Hina, in order that, genetai, subjunctive again, he might be amon. You know the verb eleo, I have mercy, and so on, eleos. This is the third declension noun. It's being used here as an adjective, I think, third declension adjective perhaps. So in order that he might be merciful, that he might be unmerciful, and a pistos, a faithful archirus, priest, or chief priest I should say, ta proston theon, in respect of those things in regard to God, ace plus the articular infinitive. So in order that he might propitiate, this is that hilaskamai verb, that he might make propitiation for the sins of the people. En ho ga peponthen autos perastes dunatai tois peradzomenos boethesai. En ho, in that, so perhaps almost because, so for, in that, he himself, having been tested, passive here, peponthen, this is perfect from patho, so it's patho, pathomai, epathon, pepontha is the perfect. You get a vowel gradation here. So it's in that, or perhaps almost because, he himself, having been tested, has suffered. So because of that, dunatai, he is able, boethesai, to render aid, so hence to assist, good old classical word here. This is an aorist infinitive from boetheo, to render aid or assist, and takes a dative, those being tested. And this chapter introduces then in this section this idea of Jesus as the archirus, as the chief priest, which was developed later in the book. And that's the end of chapter 2. As I mentioned, you really need to have a commentary to expound some of the deep theological meaning in these verses.